On this episode of Locked On Angels, are the Angels going to make any more moves? Are they? Please say yes. If they don't, what does that mean for our team in 2025? Let's talk about that. It's time to get locked on with Mike and John, and this is Locked On Angels.
You are Locked On Angels, your daily Los Angeles Angels podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. You can find us anywhere you get your podcast, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and SiriusXM by searching Locked On Angels. And if you'd like to get back to the Super Halo Bros for all the Super Halo content, here's some things that you can do. Leave us a rate and a review on Apple Podcasts. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that thumbs up button. And if you're not subscribed already, please subscribe and become a Locked On Everydayer. We're looking to go 10K by opening day, so come over to YouTube and click subscribe. That would help us out. And whether you're watching or listening, come on over to YouTube, leave a comment. It's one of the best ways to have a conversation with us and talk with other Locked On Everydayers. And today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. New customers can place $5 and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Visit FanDuel.com to get started.
Happy Friday to you, and thanks for being here for this episode of Locked On Angels, where it's your team every day. You've got the Frisch Brothers here with you, a.k.a. the Super Halo Bros. My name is John, and that's my brother Mike.
And my name is Mike, and that's my brother John.
Hey, it's our third offseason here as the host of Locked On Angels, talking Angels baseball. Right now, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and shortly before spring training, we'll get back to 5 days a week. On today's show, very important question, is Reid Detmers fixable? Well, we've got a stat that might say yes, and we'll talk about that a little bit later on. We'll talk about Caden Dana and his mindset coming into 2025. But first, Mike, the Angels made a move. It was a move, and I think it's a good move. It's an important move. Let's talk about that move.
You stole my move? All right, so the Angels acquired catcher Chuckie Robinson from the Chicago White Sox for cash considerations. That greatest player of all time, cash considerations. Replaces Matt Thaiss with the catcher who can play behind Logan O'Hoppe and Travis d'Arnaud on the depth chart. Now, ironically, Thaiss was traded to the Cubs and then to the White Sox, John. So we just switched backup catchers for all intents and purposes.
And he's back with Marcus Timms, and he's back with Matt Wise. Oh boy,
maybe it'll help him.
Yeah,
maybe it'll help him.
Yeah, maybe. Sure.
So this is really kind of just exchanging some backup catchers, essentially. So let's talk about Robinson for a moment, John. He's 30. He hit 132 with a 3.64 OPS in 51 major league games with the Sox and the Reds last year. But he doesn't bring offense. What he brings is defense. Last season, he threw out 21.4% of would-be base stealers. He ranked 22nd out of 72 catchers in pitch framing last season, in a minimum of 500 pitches. And as far as offense, he did have a career 723 OPS in the minor leagues. Now, the big reason for this move is because he can be optioned. Matt Thaiss could not be optioned. And so, of course, he's not. If he is on the major league roster at any point, that means something went terribly wrong, because we have O'Hoppe and Travis d'Arnaud. They're expected, obviously, to be the major league catchers. But there's been a lot of minor league depth that the Angels have needed, especially in the catching area. Their best prospect right now is Juan Flores, but he is just 18 years old, and he played in Class A last year. And then they have two AAA catchers that are projected to be Zach Humphreys and Anthony Mulrine. Now, I love this. Gustavo Campero was a catcher before they switched him to the outfield. But John, he's been catching again this winter, so that's an interesting dynamic as well. And then the big bummer, just because we're a fan of his and he's been on the show, is that Davis Daniel was designated for assignment to make room on the 40-man roster. Davis is 27, had a 5.06 ERA and 42 2/3 major league innings last season, or in his career with the Angels. And so he's somebody that I wish could have turned out, but obviously not on this roster for 2025.
He could still come back, still be in the minor leagues with the Angels. There's nothing wrong with that.
He could, or he could get $4.5 million from the Mets and go and pitch for them like Canning did. John, it's a depth move, but the bigger question is this all the Angels are going to do? Are they going to just do this until spring training, or are they going to do more? And do you think that I know you think that they should do more. So what should they do? Tell me.
Yeah, well, look, if this is all they do, I'm not going to sit here on December 20th and tell people that no, the Angels aren't done. They got plenty more to do.
Sure.
They'll do it, because you know what I did last year? I said that they were in on the top starting pitching, and if they weren't, they would have gone out and gotten their Michael Wakas and their Seth Lugos. The worst take I've ever had.
There's video evidence
on this show. There's video evidence, and somebody called me out for it the other day. It was like a year ago. Come on.
Yeah.
And here's the thing: when you talk about Angels baseball 5 days a week, you're not always going to be right.
Well,
about
and you
stuff.
weren't a dad then. You're now more smarter and wiser and all of those things.
Yes, Mike, I'm certainly more smarter. That's right. Here's the thing. We're still sitting here, like I said, December 20th. Pete Alonso's out there. Alex Bregman's out there. Corbin Burns is out there. Nobody's done yet. Nobody's done yet. And as far as the Angels go, we all know what their needs are. We all know what we would like to see. We all know what they need to pursue as the offseason continues on. And with that said, there's still plenty of people out there. There's still plenty of moves to make. There's still plenty of trades that they could be in on. I saw Arenado blocked a trade to the Astros the other day.
Good for him.
His list. I don't even know if they were on his list of like the potential teams he would want to go to. But
I don't think so.
Look, I mean, yeah, good for him for not joining up with the Trastros. But all of that to say, there's plenty of stuff to do out there. There's plenty of moves to make. And, you made fun of Griffin Canning, but watch the Mets fix him like they did with Sean Manaea. And more power to him. I think that would be great. All of that to say, what should we expect as this year comes to an end? We roll into the new year. Look, the dust settles after the winter meetings. There was a lot of stuff that happened. Perry said that he's planted the seeds in terms of discussions with other teams and whatnot. And now it really comes down to the players.
Yeah.
The teams. Who do they want to move? What do the Angels have to offer? And so we can sit here and go, well, the Angels didn't do anything. Well, you got to have something to give, right? And we think that they have some pieces to give. There's always trade interest around guys like Taylor Ward or Luis Rengifo and maybe even Tyler Anderson. But from the outside looking in, if you're one of those other teams, you're looking at the Angels farm system. You're looking at the two top 100 players that they have in terms of prospects in MLB, and that's Caden Dana and Christian Moore. I certainly hope they don't do anything with those guys. I think that keep them in the system and let it play out. Speaking of Christian Moore, maybe they don't do anything in the infield because they want Christian Moore to have a full season and start in the majors. And I know that Zach Neto didn't technically start in the majors, but he was up by mid-April 2023 and that experience. So I don't know. I don't know what they're thinking at this point. Obviously, there's needs to address. They're aware of it. Perry has made that clear. I don't think that you go out and talk to the media and say we're looking at upgrading every area that we can. Right? That's different than saying like last year, this is our plan. This is what we're going to do. This is that. We're going to be competitive. We're going to do this and do that. What I'm trying to say is often we talk about like, why don't they just tell us what they need to do? And why don't they just tell us what their plan is? And then some people will say, well, they don't want to show their hand. The Angels have no hand, by the way. They don't want to show their hand. That's been the case in the past. This year feels a little bit different where they do reveal what they need. We're looking to upgrade starting pitching. We're looking to upgrade the outfield, the infield, the bullpen, all that stuff. Like, I know it sounds like every position, but at least Perry has spoken about it. And I think that's a long way away from where we've been in previous off seasons. So I would expect more. And whether it's, lighting up the world with a huge free agent or a major trade or a Chuckie Robinson, who's very necessary, by the way, especially when, you have Ohapi and d'Arnaud. That's a great backup catcher combination right there, because d'Arnaud might not be a backup catcher on somebody else's team, right? And so that's a good problem to have. And then if either one of them gets hurt, they have a defensive-minded catcher, which I think is important, Mike. I think that is something that you really want out of the catcher spot. You want a catcher who's going to make your starting pitching better. And so I think this is a move that's necessary because you don't want to go to Zach Humphreys and those guys below the depth chart. Having these guys as your top three catchers, I think is super important. What about you? How do you feel about the rest of this offseason? What do you think is going to happen from here on out?
I think you hit the nail on the head with all of the people that are still out there. The teams are not done, right? We're in the middle of the Christmas holiday season. And so I think that we're going to see more moves after the first of the year, if not in the next maybe couple of days, right? And so I think for the Angels, the move that they're going to make, they're probably going to have some of these smaller moves to help fill the roster in a few different ways, upgrade some pieces in the roster that are going to help them to be a major league caliber team. And that's the thing that I appreciate about what Perry's doing is he's helping our major league roster be major league caliber. Like they're all going to be 0 WAR at least instead of negative WAR or not even, making a dent in that. And so
100 OPS plus guys, 100
yes,
WRC plus guys at least. Yeah.
And so they're going to be major league caliber. The thing that I think that's going to happen, John, is if they're going to make a significant move, I think it's going to happen during a trade. I think it's going to be, and Jeff Passan mentioned this yesterday. He mentioned that 2 names, Taylor Ward, Luis Rengifo, 2 names you mentioned, are available for other teams. And so I think that we're probably going to see 1 or 2 of those guys get traded. My guess would be, John, that if they do end up trading Taylor Ward, I think Rengifo goes with him because I don't think Taylor Ward is going to set the world on fire. I don't think anybody's going to be super excited. I don't know if a 1-for-1 deal happens with Taylor Ward, and I don't think the Angels are going to throw in any of their minor league guys, and I don't think that they should. And so I do think that it probably will be a Rengifo. If Rengifo goes, then I think Christian Moore is the second baseman in 2025. I think that's almost a guarantee unless they go and sign Hae-Sung Kim or something along those lines, which they really haven't been connected to any of those players. And so if Rengifo goes, I think Christian Moore is starting at second base. With Zach Neto being injured, I'm leaning about 85% that Christian Moore is starting at second base in 2025. And I think they're going to let spring training play out to see what he can do against major league caliber pitching.
Does it hurt to start the season with him? And then if it doesn't work out, you send him down to double A.
So, because
it doesn't feel like it to me. No,
I don't think so because you're starting the season fresh with everybody. And the thing that you're starting the season with as well is a Mike Trout in the lineup. And so to have a Christian Moore in that lineup with a Mike Trout, it takes a lot of pressure, I think, off of Christian Moore to have to, be this incredible hitter because you have a longer lineup with Jorge Soler and some of the other guys. And so I think that you give it a shot. Why not? And maybe that's what they're thinking about in-house is that this guy is actually major league ready and we want to put him out there and let him be successful. We want to put him in a bad situation. And so I think they're going to let that play out in spring training. But I wouldn't be surprised if he's starting on opening day for the Angels.
You made a comment about Taylor Ward and the value that might come back for that. Look, if the Yankees can get Cody Bellinger for a journeyman relief pitcher, then the Angels can certainly trade one of their pieces. Yeah, and they even got cash back in the deal. So
that's a good point. That's a very good point.
I mean, look, if you can afford the contract that's coming back your way, then certainly other teams are going to be jonesing to get rid of that contract. So yeah, we'll see how things play out. That shocked me, Mike. Yeah, I mean, I get it from the Cubs' perspective. They just wanted to get rid of that contract, and I think it's great for the Yankees too.
Right.
But, people who were talking about, I don't know if this is a good deal for the Yankees. Shut up. The Yankees got a steal out of that. Cody
Bellinger's
Bellinger
going to hit 35 to 40 home runs with that short porch. I mean, you get it. You get it in that right center, like stream of wind that they have fans blowing in that stadium somewhere, right? Because I could hit a home run in that stadium, and that's saying something.
And you're not even left-handed.
And I'm not even left-handed, and I'm not even good.
Thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. Coming up on the show, can Reid Detmers be Reid built? How about that? Do you like that?
Oh my goodness.
Let's see if he's fixable. And Mike, you pulled up a stat that's really interesting that kind of indicates that, things could be different for Reid Detmers in 2025. We'll talk about that coming right up.
Hey, today's show is brought to you by our friends at Rocket Money. They're going to help you find any subscriptions that you forgot about or that you were paying for twice. The fact that sometimes that happens is hilarious, but it's a reality, right?
For me, it's the free trials that get me. I'm Apple TV for 3 months. And then 3 months later, I'm like, oops.
I've been paying for that for 3 years.
Yeah, exactly.
But Rocket Money is here to help you. They're a personal finance app that helps find and cancel unwanted subscriptions. They monitor your spending and they help you lower your bills so that you can grow your savings, which we all need right now. And it brings everything together in one place, whether it's subscriptions, your spending habits, or maybe some goals that you want to set in 2025. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has saved each one of them a total of everybody $500 million in canceled subscriptions and saving members up to $740 a year while using this app and the premium features. For me, it's one of the best features on this app is the subscription tracker, because as we've talked about, man, it's easy to get a subscription and then forget about it, and you save a ton of money. And then they have a goals feature. You can automatically set money for the future, and you don't have to stress about things. You don't have to stress about budgeting. It all helps you out in that. So cancel those unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster in 2025 with Rocket Money. Go to their website right now, rocketmoney.com/lockedon. Again, that's rocketmoney.com/lockedon.
And today's show is brought to you by our friends at SelectQuote. Talking about who the Angels need to add to their roster, you need to add SelectQuote to your roster, especially when it comes to protecting your legacy and your family's financial future. I said this the other day. I'm a dad now. I got to be thinking about this kind of stuff. And I'm glad SelectQuote is there for us. They're one of America's leading insurance brokers with nearly 40 years of experience, helping over 2 million customers find over $700 billion in coverage since 1985. That's about where the contracts are going to get in baseball here pretty soon. Other life insurance brokers offer impersonal one-size-fits-all policies that may cost you more, cover you less. But with SelectQuote, their licensed insurance agents work for you to tailor a life insurance policy to fit your individual needs in as little as 15 minutes. If you're in good health, they'll work with carriers to get you same-day coverage for up to $5 million, no medical exam, and these policies are much more affordable than you think. You can get coverage of up to $1 million for just $20 a month. So head to selectquote.com/lockedon, and a licensed insurance agent will call you right away with the right policy for your life and your budget. That's selectquote.com/lockedon to get started. SelectQuote, they shop and you save.
This is the Locked On Podcast Network, and we are Locked On Angels, your team every day. Thanks for making us your first listen of the day. Johnny, let's talk about Reid Detmers.
Can I just shout out a couple of everydayers before we continue?
Absolutely.
I said I would give them a shout out if they knew the reference. More.5703 on YouTube said, disposed. I'm like 95% sure that's Donatello in the OG TMNT2 Secret of the Ooze.
Yep.
And then Michael Ace Saley said, wasn't expecting to get my daily Angels news with the Secret of the Ooze reference. And then Germa Dwarf Anthony said, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. So shout out to those guys for understanding that reference from Wednesday's show.
We've got some great everydayers.
They're with us. They're with us.
Yes, absolutely. They're nerds like us. And speaking of nerds like us, let's talk about Reid Detmers. Reid has been somebody that I've been a big fan of, John, but he's been a question mark for the Halos and is a big question mark entering this season. Now, if he figures it out and he's Reid Detmers of his first few starts in 2024, brilliant. The Angels look brilliant and he looks fantastic and all is forgiven, right? But if he's the Reid Detmers that he was at the end of the year or after those starts, then he's going to be a bit of an issue and he's going to have a bit of an issue. And so the big question is he fixable? And there's one stat that I found interesting that says, yes, he is fixable. And the stat is SIERA. So it stands for Skill Interactive Earned Run Average. It estimates a pitcher's performance by trying to account for factors outside of their control. So it also includes FIP, because FIP is kind of that type of thing as well. But this also includes things like balls in play, the type of ball in play, and how run prevention improves with ground balls versus fly balls. It attempts to answer the question of what a pitcher's underlying skill level actually is. So a good SIERA number, John, is anything that is about 3. A 3 would be considered excellent. Under 3 is excellent. A score in the maybe mid 3s to 4s is good. And then anything 4 and above is typically below average. So Reid Detmers last season had a 3.77 SIERA.
All
So
right.
he is in that excellent to good category. That placed him 43rd out of 138 starting pitchers who threw at least 80 innings out of the rotation last season. For comparison, Corbin Burns, who we all want, he had a 3.75 SIERA last year, John. So Reid was just 0.02 behind him. And Garrett Cole had a 3.79 SIERA in 2024. Reid was actually better than Garrett Cole last season.
Interesting. Two names that you want to be associated with. That's for sure. So if we're going to put this in context, right, you gave us some good comparisons to where Reid's SIERA ended up with Burns and Garrett Cole. What does it actually mean? Well, let's talk about how we can translate this information. It means that Reid was in more control of the game than we realize. In fact, it means Detmers probably had some really bad luck in his outings. And even just the eyeball test could tell you, there's some bad luck there, right? That includes bad defense, balls put in play that found a hole, and a lot more stuff. The numbers say that didn't happen to Corbin Burns or Garrett Cole. Even further, Detmers' underlying numbers were pretty good. He had a 3.86 expected fielding independent pitching, actually 6% better than league average. Mikey had a 27.9% strikeout rate, the best of his career. He's had a walk rate of 9.7, which was one of the best of his career. And then in his last 5 starts, he struck out 34.2% of batters. Now, caveat to all of this, he did give up 8 home runs and has had a 15.6% barrel rate. So the perfect trajectory of swing and launch angle, right? And so that was going against him during this season. Do these numbers convince you enough that Reid Detmers has the ability to put it together in 2025 and maybe even give him that open spot in the rotation?
I look at Reid Detmers and my first thought is this, John. Now it makes a little bit more sense why he said, I don't know what's happening. I mean, I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing, right? And because his numbers were very similar and his control of the game was very similar to Corbin Burns and to Garrett Cole. Maybe for Reid Detmers, maybe what Reid needs is to be in intense competition. And what I mean by that is Corbin Burns was on a good team. Obviously, Garrett Cole was on a good team, and they were intensely competitive in those moments. And something you've pointed out on this show is that it's funny when Reid is pitching against like the Dodgers or any other good team,
right?
He's really good.
Yeah.
And then against really bad teams, I wonder if it's not necessarily Reid, but more the team behind him. And what I mean by that is that they aren't feeling the intense pressure of the moment and needing to rise to the occasion. They're kind of sitting back on their heels. They're not hustling as much as maybe those on the Orioles or those on the Yankees would hustle behind Garrett Cole and Corbin Burns. All that to say, I do think these numbers convince me that Reid deserves a bit more time. And I would even give Reid the 5th spot in the rotation to at least start the season and have Kohanowitz in AAA, maybe AA, depending on where it really helps him. And as soon as there is a sign that something's not going right with any one of your pitchers, then I'm flipping them out quickly and putting in Jack Kohanowitz. I know that his last few starts, he did earn the right to pitch, but because of what the Angels have done with this starting rotation, and if they remain healthy, I think that they now have the luxury to really process what they want to do with a Kohanowitz and give Reid Detmers an opportunity, John, to be the 5th starter where there isn't as much pressure. And maybe that actually isn't a bad thing after the point I made about intensity. Maybe he needs to be higher up in the rotation. But I think that what these numbers tell us is that Reid isn't as lost as we have made it out to be, or his numbers have made it out to be on the surface.
Well, and at the end of the day, I still think pitch efficiency is the biggest thing that bites Reid Detmers. And of course, the home run factor is a huge part of that as well.
Yeah.
Right. And when you talk about FIP, like that's included. How many home runs are you surrendering, in your FIP? So 3.86 xFIP, expected FIP. That's great news, but he's got to lower that home run ball against him.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead.
And then those 8 home runs that you shared were just in those last 5 starts.
Right.
So he really was getting rocked, even though he was striking batters out and not walking anybody. He was missing his spot and he wasn't efficient. And you've talked about that often. He wasn't throwing strike one. And that's why he had a lot of home runs, because he was trying to get back into the strike zone because he was down 2-0 and they knew that a strike was coming, instead of maybe throwing a strike with his first or second pitch.
So these numbers tell me I'm willing to give him a chance, right? I'm willing to give him a chance in that rotation, but it can't be kind of what you alluded to earlier, where he's like, I don't know what I need to change.
Yeah.
And I don't know what I need to do different. Well, obviously you got to stay ahead in the count. You're not always going to stay ahead. You're going to fall behind sometimes, right? So I think it's 50-50 here, Mike. I think it's, what happens behind him is key, and that is indicated by the Sierra, of course. But what happens on the mound for Reid Detmers, he's got to figure out how to pitch efficiently, how to pitch competitively. And I think in our next segment, as we hear what Caden Dana had to say, that's going to give us a really good indication of the kind of pitcher that we would like to see Reid Detmers be in 2025.
Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. And right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit the FanDuel Sportsbook in the App Store, or you can go to their website, FanDuel.com. And everything that you need is all in the same place. The betting information and the stats and the play-by-play, all in the same place. So when you get a hunch, don't waste that hunch, because you need some resource. You're spending a lot of money at Christmas.
That's not indigestion from the hot wings. That's a hunch, baby.
Yep. And so that way you need to listen to it. Go to FanDuel.com and again, get started with $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. FanDuel.com is where to get started. Never waste that hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL.
Mike, there's a great writer for AngelsWin.com, Ryan Falla, who we follow on Twitter. He's a great Falla on Twitter, so make sure you're following him. I've used that joke before, so shout out to Ryan, though. He's a great interaction on Twitter. He wrote an article on Caden Dana, got a chance to actually interview him, which is really cool. He shared the overall stats and numbers from Dana this season, and Dana came just 3 innings short of the Triple Crown in Double-A. So that's innings pitched, ERA, and also the strikeouts. But he did get beat out by Chase Chaney, who is a teammate of his, in terms of the Triple Crown for innings pitched. But he did strike out 147 batters, had a 2.52 ERA, came in second in innings pitched with 135 2/3 innings pitched. Dana's best quality is his durability on the mound, not just in the amount of innings he pitched, but also the quality of his starts. And in Double-A, all of minor league baseball, he was tied for the 3rd most quality starts, which was 14.
Dang.
Across all of minor league baseball. So
Atta boy, that's fantastic.
3/4 levels across 30 teams. Really fantastic for Caden Dana. Held opponents to a 184 batting average against, had a 41% swing and miss rate on his slider. All this earned him his first major league start in September. Pitched 6 innings, struck out 4, and earned the win. And he actually told Ryan about that first start. He said, I only had my fastball and slider in that first start. I didn't even have my slider early in the game. But once I found one thing on the mound, I became confident in it and built on that. Now, I mentioned something about Reid Detmers on the mound, and what Caden Dana has to say here is something that I hope is being ingrained to all of these young starting pitchers. Here's what Caden Dana had to say. I started to make adjustments and noticed what plays off what. I was still learning while I was at the top in the major leagues, facing different hitters, seeing what pitch mixes against righties or lefties was the biggest thing for me, which ones worked the most. I kept throwing what worked, so it ended up being a really good outing, but it's mostly a mental game. I was mentally prepared for the outing for a full 4 days. I couldn't stop thinking about it. I love that. What does that say about his determination, his grittiness, his maturity. I love what he had to say there. What do you think?
Yeah, John, this reminds me of what Wash said about Max Scherzer the other day. He said, I would love to have Scherzer on my team with the game on the line because he's going to come in, he's gritty, he's gutty, and he knows what he needs to do, and he's going to fight.
It bums me out because last year when we talked to Davis Daniel, he had this understanding as well.
Yeah, he did.
And perhaps, and this is not a knock on Davis Daniel, perhaps the repertoire is not quite there. He gets it, but perhaps the talent doesn't quite meet where, Davis's head is at. Like his somebody once told me, your tastes are higher than your talent. And that always stuck with me. And so for Davis Daniel to go out there and know what he wants to do, it's just the ability to do it. I feel like reading this right here kind of tells me that Caden Dana has a very similar mindset there.
Yeah, and he talked about spring training as well. And he said, I got the experience I needed in 2024. I'm ready to show it. My biggest thing is that spring, I want to have fun. I'm not going to go out there and try to steal jobs. I know spots are open, but I'm not going to focus on anything like that. I just want to enjoy being around my teammates, building new relationships for the season. Baseball is a beautiful sport, and I look forward to a fresh start in this season, no matter where I start. John, where should Caden Dana start in 2025?
I still think it's the minor leagues, Mike. I still think that AA is a good spot for him. I did suggest AAA maybe, but you also, here's the thing. The most competitive environment that's the most realistic for a minor league player is AA, especially in the Angels organization, right? Because you're facing a similar level of competition. Everybody's around your age. And so when it comes to being competitive, that's a place where you can develop that competitiveness. Dana still has some things to work on. I think the fastball velo needs to be ticked up a bit. That's going to be adding some strength, adding some spin, adding some movement on that fastball, especially if he does have a hard time finding his other pitches like he did in that first start. Not saying that that's going to be the case every time, but he does have things to work on. He's 21 years old. I think that there's no reason to rush him up. Imagine that the Angels have a good season that's been better than the last, 10 years.
Yep.
And we're going into 2026 and we're like, man, now's the time to unleash Caden Dana on the major leagues, because look at what he's done in this last year. Look at his velo. Look at the off-speed stuff he did. Now, he's got the numbers from last season to prove that he was pretty dang good. Mm-hmm. And so maybe there is a level up in AAA where you can challenge him a little bit. Hey, man, that ball's going to fly around the yard a whole lot more than it did in Alabama and Rocket City. And so you better prepare yourself for that. That might be a step up for him. That might be a challenge. But again, I think his best place right now is in the minor leagues. Figure out what he needs in terms of development, whether it's more work on his pitches or see how he matches up against the kind of competition to be offered in AA and AAA. But again, I am not in any rush to see him up in the major leagues. I like that they gave him a look last season. I think it was worth a shot just to see what they had in him. And I could also see him coming up and filling in if somebody gets hurt. I would totally turn to him in that situation. Because again, you give him an opportunity to be challenged. And, he kind of got rocked a little bit at the end of September. I think that's a really good thing for him. I think he's got the right mentality to revisit what went wrong and try to fix it for 2025. But I am excited to see that he's going into spring, no expectations, just having fun. And if he earns a spot, it's because he did well. And I think that's all that we can ask for from Caden Dana.
Thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. Now for your second listen, check out Locked On MLB with our friend Sully. Going to give you a blend of humor and baseball and keep you updated on every rumor and story throughout the offseason. Find his show on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts.
Hey, give us a follow on Twitter at Locked On Angels and at Super Halo Bros on Twitter and Instagram. Whether you're watching or listening, come on over to YouTube, get in the comments section. We'll do our best to get in the conversation with you guys. Hit that subscribe button. We're looking for 10K by opening day. You guys have stepped up so much in terms of doing that. It really helps Mike and I directly more than you know. Hey, what do we have on deck for when we come back on Monday's show, Mike?
John, it's something that you and I've talked about off air, and so we're going to talk about it on the air and what needs to happen in order for this team, as it currently stands, to be successful in 2025. We're going to share all of those details on Monday on Locked On Angels.
All right, looking forward to that conversation, and we hope you'll come back and join us. Until then, my name is John, and that's my brother Mike.
And my name is Mike, and that's my brother John.
Thanks for being here with us, everybody, and we'll see you back here on Monday.
Oh, a fellow chucker, eh?
Love it.